Huh? 2 of them? Congratulations, you can count. And they say the school system's failing.
My mum came into my bedroom when I was 2 years old and I'd drawn Humpty Dumpty on the wall. And instead of like beating the shit out of me for ruining the wall, she was like, actually, that's pretty fucking good. So ever since then,
did she say it just like that?
yeah. No, that would be her style.
So Humpty Dumpty on a wall. Was he sitting on a wall as you drew him on the wall, or was he just on the wall?
I can't remember. I'll have to ask her.
That'd be pretty meta if he was on the wall, really sitting on the wall. Yeah.
It really would. But I've wanted to draw ever since I can remember. I don't remember a time where I wasn't drawing. But
but when did you decide like, oh, I want to be a professional comic book artist?
Well, I was drawing comics before I knew what comics were. You know what I mean? Like, so I'd be seeing those cartoons. Like I was watching the Turtles, but I wouldn't have known. I didn't know they were originally a comic. So I would draw comics of the Turtles because I couldn't. You couldn't see there wasn't on-demand TV like there was now, so you just make your own adventures, But I just once I found the American stuff, I really dived into that. But I remember reading Marvel Comics used to bring out this kind of like magazine called Vision, and it would have interviews with people, and it would have behind-the-scenes stuff. And there was an interview with Andy Kubert, and I think he said how much money he made in a year. And I went into my mum. I was like, "Mammy, is that a lot of money?" And she was like, "Fuck yeah, it is."
Mate, I already love your mum because she tells it how it is, man. That's fucking great, son. I love that Humpty Dumpty. Fuck yeah, that's a lot of money. What we having for dinner? We're having fucking hamburgers tonight. Fuck yeah.
She wouldn't be that, go-getting attitude. It would be more, what are we having? We're having steak and potatoes, and you'll fucking eat it. You know what I mean? The swearing wasn't always necessarily a good thing. You'll fucking eat it and you'll fucking like it, is generally what I was told. But but like once I realized, like, oh, actually, that's a job that someone gets paid to do. That for some reason in my head just solidified it that I could do it. That it would be something.
Do you remember how much Andy was making?
No, I can't remember. Like there was like 1,000 in it, but it could have been 3,000 or 30,000. But I remember my mum, because like I grew up a single mum, so we didn't necessarily have a lot of money. But like if she said that was a lot of money, then I knew it was enough. Do you know what I mean? To get by, like. But she seemed to think it was a lot of money. So I'm like, oh well, I didn't think I'd be rich necessarily, but I knew I could do it for a living. Clearly, it was enough to get by on. So I never really thought about it after that. I just it's just what I always wanted to do. I just kept drawing, and I think I feel very lucky, and I'd say like Will, you can sympathize with this, is that growing up in like a culture like say Ireland or the UK, where to draw comics isn't something that people go like, oh yeah, that's a thing. It's like saying you're an astronaut. They're like, yeah, okay, best of luck with that. But knowing that it was possible and that people actually did do it for a living, it's like most people in my life didn't know what they wanted to do. Where I did know, I just didn't know how. Whereas most people in everyday life know how, they just don't know what. And it seems like a bigger problem when you're a kid, because how the fuck are you going to do it? But then, now that I'm older, I look back and I see how loads of people in my life who have found a job and they ended up like being a plumber or working for insurance companies or whatever, which is, is great and they're making money, but they end up there. Whereas with me, I always knew. So it was just a case of like, what path do I need to take in order to achieve this goal? And I just kind of had that all my life, and thankfully it worked out.
So you were headstrong from a very young age then?
Oh yeah, big time. Like I knew, when I finished Leaving Cert, I was like, well, what the hell do I do now? Like, because how does a guy from the west of Ireland get work for Marvel Comics? There was no guidebook for that, No,
that's some really impressive stuff, and definitely a good mindset to be in if you want to achieve what you want. So it's impressive.
Yeah, like blind, stubborn ignorance.
Yeah, well, you know what? It paid off, so who gives a fuck?
Thankfully.
Yeah, exactly. So who are your art inspirations, or who still are your art inspirations? But especially, who were they when you were trying to break into being a professional comic book artist?
Jim Lee and Andy Kubert were my guys. Jim Lee, Andy Kubert, and Mark Bagley, which is very like clear who the stuff that was coming out at the time. Because when I really got into comics properly, I was able to find some American comics, and the Clone Saga was happening in Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Right.
But it was well in. It was near the end. Ben Reilly had blonde hair. I'm like, who the fuck is Ben Reilly? But then Panini started doing those reprints where you could get 3 US comics in one, basically. And they started with Spider-Man, I think, and then they ended up doing X-Men like a few months afterwards. But it was great because I was reading the end of the Clone Saga, but then I was reading the beginning of it too. So, over time I managed to close the gap because the UK reprints ended up catching up. But the UK reprints were actually really, really great because they came out every month. I could get them in a newsagent easily. They're way easier to get than American comics. And there was so much more content. There was like 60 pages of stuff, So they were really, really great, I have to say. But it was Mark Bagley from Spider-Man. It was Andy Kubert from X-Men. And it was like Jim Lee's X-Men. And I think I saw some of the Wildcat stuff. But I would be very different now, whereas the stuff I'm into now is way more... it's guys like J.P. Leon. I think David Mazzucchelli changed everything for me because I was reading Batman.
I can see Mazzucchelli in your artwork more than I can see Mark Bagley.
It's weird. I see the superhero stuff when I'm penciling, but I see I think a lot of my superhero stuff is very Andy Kubert in like my compositions and my storytelling. In the inking, it's very much like J.P. Leon and Goran Parlov, and so I think. Like I've got this like so much of this superhero stuff in my DNA, but it lurks underneath the stuff which I like telling moody, depressing, dark stories and all that. But underneath me, there's definitely this kind of like 100% superhero fan in my DNA at the same time.
That's awesome. And what about writers, inspirations? Who do you admire or definitely are inspired by?
I would say probably Garth Ennis, Ed Brubaker, and Warren would be my main guys.
Pretty good choices.
Yeah, Brubaker especially is one of my favorites.
Have you been reading Kill or Be Killed?
Yeah, that's great. It's interesting seeing him kind of do something different from a writer's point of view, where it was interesting in Criminal where he was kind of like trying narration and then not trying narration, and now he's kind of doing this very unreliable narrator with Kill or Be Killed, where even from like telling the story, he's referencing the order in which the story is being told. Like I can't remember the name of the main character, but he'd be like, "Oh well, I haven't told you this bit yet," and then it'll cut to something, which is kind of interesting. I wouldn't have the balls to do that because I'm so much of a novice compared to Ed. But I mean, I love those guys because they can do. He'll do a street level crime book. And then he'll do this great, like I love his superhero stuff too. Same with Warren. Warren will do like crazy, bloody postmodern madness, but then he'll do something as just total adrenaline, like Red or some of the Moon Knight stuff that we did. Ed Brisson, I'm a big fan of as well. I feel Ed Brisson at Marvel. I'm hoping Ed Brisson is going to be the next Ed Brubaker, basically.
Think so?
Well, I mean, I've loved Ed's stuff for years as a crime writer, and now seeing him like kind of jump in with the superhero stuff, I'm really excited by that.
What's he on right now?
He's doing Old Man Logan. He's doing Iron Fist. He was doing Cable, but then they just announced him on this Extermination book like yesterday. But Jason Aaron as well. Like Jason Aaron.
Oh yeah, I think Jason Aaron's definitely in my top 2 or 3 right now. He's just absolutely killing it. Yeah, no, I mean, like I worked with him on a short story, but other than that, oh really?
Yeah, it was for American Vampire. I got to do like a 8-page story, and I really messed up. There was one page where I'd missed a detail, and like it was a very, very, very big mistake to make. And he pointed out the layouts, and I was like, or in the pencils, like, oh crap! Now he thinks I'm an idiot. Like one of the very few times I've made a very big mistake, but I love those guys because, well, one, they just tell great stories, but I also like the kind of like range of stuff they can work in as well.
Yeah, like Jason Aaron's Southern Bosses is amazing. His Thor is amazing. Yeah, like he can't do any wrong. Right now, like I think the top workers right now for me are Jason Aaron, Tom King,
Tom.
Tom is he's destroying it right now. Yeah. I mean, starting with the visions that I read from him to begin with, and then moving on into Batman, he's absolutely killing it.
Yeah, I've kind of lost track of his Batman stuff, to be honest, just because because it double shifts, there's so much of it. So I'll find out I've missed 3 issues. I'm like, oh Jesus, when did these come out? So I've fallen off the wagon on the Batman stuff a bit, but I'll come back to it. Like he's just too good. The Vision was fantastic.
Oh my God.
It's the best comic I've read in a very long time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Were there any more, Will, that you were mentioning? Sorry, we jumped in on Tom King when
That's
you said
right. I was only going to say my other 2 were Kirkman and Snyder.
Yeah.
But it's not really about me. I don't know why.
No.
My favorite writers.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's all about inspirations, isn't it? And just people out there listening are either going to agree and go, hell yeah, I love those people as well, or they're just going to be like, no, they're terrible.
Yeah, I feel like it because I've gotten to work with Scott. And that was cool. I'm really, really lucky. Like I said, one of my favorite guys is Warren. I've gotten to work with Warren. Like the list of guys I'd love to work with are very, very few because I've actually gotten to work with like some amazing guys.
So did you work with Snyder on American Vampire?
No. That was Jason Aaron. That was a short story.
Oh, I did. Of course, you just mentioned that.
No, you're fine. It's I did what you call it? All-Star Batman. I did a backup.
Oh, of course you did.
Yeah, I did like the first 4 issues. I did.
Yeah, I've got that written down here because that All-Star Batman.
Well, you've read all of that because you made me buy it in my Comixology when it was coming out. We share a Comixology. Well, basically, I use his Now TV and Netflix, and he uses my Comixology. That's our little deal.
That's pretty fair.
Yeah,
so that was one of the things where he's like, "Get that book. I want to read it." I was like, "All right."
It was really good. I went on holiday to Morocco, Deck, and I plowed through that. It was awesome.
It was great. It was funny because I got to read the whole script, before John Romita started drawing it, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. It's in my head, but now the next time I'm going to see it, it's going to be John Romita drawing it. I wonder what that's going to look like. So it's pretty cool to kind of see. You know, when you read a script, I'm sure you kind of break it down a little bit. Not the whole way, but in your head, you've got some images.
Yeah.
So it was really cool because I grew up on Romita stuff too.
He's one of my biggest art influences, hands down.
Yeah, I've tossed and turned on him. Like I love the Daredevil Man Without Fear stuff, but then there was a while at Marvel where I really went off his stuff. But I think he's come back in a really big way.
Last for me. Oh, it's all heaven sent. It's all fucking.
Oh, really?
The best storytelling ever done in comics.
If you say his full name, he breaks out in song. You can't.
Yeah, John Romita Jr.
But it's weird. I've gotten some comparisons to John Romita, and I for the longest time couldn't see it, but I think my figure work is a little. I was
going to say, your figure work has a bit of that John Romita Jr. flair.
Oh, you think? Oh, okay, yeah, that's weird because it's I didn't see it at all, so I've been trying to look and see why do people say that. But yeah, I think it probably is the blocking.
Maybe because it's good.
Well, but it's not JR good now, is it? But anyway,
no one is.
So, in becoming good and becoming an artist and honing your craft, how long were you an independent artist for? And talk about some of the close calls you had maybe before you finally then broke in professionally.
How do you mean close calls?
Well, meaning, so
you may have not had any.
Oh, exactly. I was going to say, depending on the answer to the first question, which was how long were you an independent artist for?
Well, I think I know what you mean. I did this black and white comic called Hero Killers. That was my first thing, and we had it at Bristol Comic Con in 2008, and that was my first proper comic that I did from scratch. And that ended up winning the Eagle Award that year, which was a great way to start, But
no big deal.
I mean it won the Eagle Award for like best indie book or whatever, So I was very much clearly an indie guy because I wasn't, I was just starting out.
That's on your comic database along with your date of birth picture and everything else you worked on.
I wish they'd take it off.
Mine doesn't have a date of birth. It doesn't have a picture. It has nothing. But to be honest, it's really fucking accurate. I was like, Jesus, they got all the indie stuff I did. How the hell did they know that?
Yeah, it's weird how they. Yeah, but so then I mean, I was just scraping by. I was on the dole, and I would be working on my portfolio. So to me, Hero Killers was a portfolio. I mean, it didn't pay or anything like that. But I think I went to Scotland and I got a gig doing a classical comics Frankenstein graphic novel. So that was my first time being like paid. And that lasted for a few months. And I was like, oh, brilliant. Like, I get paid to do this now. And then I was signed up to do another graphic novel, but I had
so that was with the proper company then.
Yeah, it was a proper company. I mean, they weren't a big comics company or anything, but they were.
But it wasn't just like some bloke just hiring you.
Yeah, no. It was a proper company. But so I did that for like 9 or 10 months, and then when it was over, it was like, well, we have another one, but it's not ready to work on yet. And I was waiting, and like that's the one time where I've been boned, not boned, but waiting for a gig. And I ended up drawing a book with the writer of Hero Killers again for free, just to have something to show for myself. And I colored it myself I just wanted to kind of like learn. But there was like 4 months there where I didn't have any work. And but other than those 4 months, I've always had something, like ever since I started the next graphic novel, and then I started getting American work, I've never like not had a gig ahead of me. So I'm pretty
What was the next thing?
The next thing it was a Sweeney Todd graphic novel, and then
really?
Yeah, same company, same type of thing. But then it was I was halfway through that graphic novel. I got offered 20 Days Later at Boom. I didn't get the gig, but then the guy who did get the gig bailed. I think he got Marvel work. So they get. So
there was like a ladder of bailing there. There was someone bailed to Marvel, so you bailed this book to get into Boom.
I still finished the graphic novel, but like they were actually really good. They kind of gave me time to kind of like tip away in it on the side. So I did I took a gap every 4 issues on 28 Days Later, but I wasn't not working. I was finishing the graphic novel basically. So and then with 28 Days Later, I kind of went to, when I was working on 28 Days Later, I went to the States and I hit as many American conventions as I could. And then by the time I came back after 3 months, I had an offer from Marvel to do Thunderbolts.
So you just went on like a tour of comic conventions and shook hands with editors and things? Yeah,
well, I mean, I've been over to American shows a lot. But myself and Will Slimey, who draws the Scarlet Spider book now, the two of us were like, well, we were both working for Boom, and we were like, well, will we just fucking go over to New York for a while? We don't have girlfriends. There's nothing stopping us. Let's just go over there for a bit. And we knew we had a lot of American friends from conventions over the years. So when we went over there, we knew people and we hung out with them. We met editors and, people. When people said, oh, what do you do? We were able to say, oh, well, we work. I do like 20 Days Later, not I'm an aspiring comic book artist. So
that's a big step up for anybody. I mean, I know I was always striving to get that, but like I was always indie and then it was Marvel, but I was always trying to get that in between for the step up.
Yeah. I mean, like keep in mind, like it wasn't my first time going to America or anything. I'd gone to New York Comic Con like I think 5 times at this stage. But yourself over time, you just build some. You meet somebody and then you catch up with them the following year and they introduce you to somebody else. So by the time like actually got weirdly I knew more people at DC when I got Marvel work. But what happened was I went to when I was over there, I just made a point of like trying to hit a few US shows. So I did a small one in Albany and there was a New York Comic Con one.
What year were you at New York Comic Con in 2012? Because Will and I were there.
Yep. I would have been there.
And 2013.
And 2013, yeah. Both of us were there.
I was in a little indie booth, like, someone please get this comic book.
Yeah, both of us.
I've been there every year for the past, I'd say maybe like 10 years.
It's an awesome show, isn't it? It's an amazing show. It is. And like there's stuff not to like about it and there's stuff to like about it. But if you know what you're going there for, it's great. And like now, working for Marvel, it's brilliant because you go and you just catch up with all the editors that you've worked with, like going to the Marvel party and like talking to the person you did this cover with and the person that you did, like it's like having a work party. It's great.
I need to do that because I feel like me and Nate just are lost in our own little rooms, like drawing comics.
Nate, you should have seen Nate at the Marvel party last year because I've been telling him to come to New York for years, and he finally did it last year. And you should have seen his little face at the Marvel party. He was,
was he skipping and giggling and?
Oh, he was just a big smiley face the whole time and
waiting in line to meet people he already works with just to see them.
Yeah, because it was a small bar, it wasn't too bad, but like his face was red. His, or beetroot. I'd say he was entirely beetroot coloured at the time. But But like there's editors who he's worked with for like 2 years that he hadn't actually talked to, and yourself, Will, like you're freelance, so like the thing to stop you from being just a completely like to them, if as far as you're just a name, like a name and an email. But when you actually meet them and you're like, you get a much better sense of the person. You don't need to be constantly paranoid you're not going to get work anymore, And you get to talk, like you can talk to Jake about like weird movies, or getting to actually know the person really, really helps. But anyway, so when I was in New York for like 3 months, me and Will said we'll just stay there for like as long as the tourist visa would allow, and I went to C2E2 for the first time, and I went to Heroes as well. And when I was at Heroes, I met Jeff Parker, and he was writing Thunderbolts at the time. But I think they needed to fill in, so he said, "Hey, do you mind if I show your stuff to Marvel?" And in typical Irish fashion, I was like, no, I wouldn't want to be in a position. I basically tried talking him out of it, because I felt like I was being a dickhead.
That's the whole reason you went there.
I know.
You're there on like the last minute visa before you get kicked out. Then someone's just like, "Do you mind if I show you your stuff?"
Yeah. I didn't go up to him going, "Hey, would you show your stuff to Marvel?" Because that would be an asshole thing to do.
Yeah.
But when he offered, I felt like that's what had happened.
Do you know what? I think you're onto something where maybe your success is equal to the takeaway approach, where it's a genius sales tactic where you go up and you want something, and suddenly you're like, oh well, maybe not, and maybe no, and try, and suddenly they're like, oh shit, we really need this guy because he's backing out. We got to get him.
That is not the impression I was giving off at all. I was like, I literally turned into like Father Ted or something. It was just like, no, I wouldn't want to put you out. And he was like, "But you're not putting me out. I'm offering." And Tom Fowler was there. He's this amazing Canadian artist, and he was just looking at me, going, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Just say yes and say thank you." I was like, "Oh right, yes, thank you." And then I got he said, Jeff said the stuff, and a couple of weeks later, I got the gig. But like I nearly talked my way out of it because I just didn't want to be. I think like myself and Will and any other Irish guys are really like that. Like we're good to talk to, and we like meeting people, and we always have a laugh. But at the same time, you don't want anyone to think you're being a dickhead, and you don't want to be putting anybody out, or yourself. Like you just don't want to be a prick. But we kind of sometimes you overcompensate for that.
You try to guard yourself a little too close to the chest. Yeah,
exactly. Like I don't mind being a prick. I don't mind being a prick now. That's fine.
So he sent out the stuff, and then what happened? Did you get an email?
I got an email. Actually, I remember me and Will were out in the piss, I think, and we went back to our place, and I got an email from editor. It was Bill Roseman. He was the editor on Thunderbolts at the time, and they basically said, "Oh, hey, Bill from Marvel here are wondering if you'd be interested in drawing like an issue of 2 issues of Thunderbolts." And as if hey, would you mind? I was like, yeah, okay, I can do that.
let me check my very busy schedule.
Exactly, yeah. But it was good because I was in New York at the time. I got to actually meet Bill and talk to him in the Marvel offices at the time. They were in a different location.
That's awesome.
So I because now I didn't have to, but I was like, fuck it, I'm here. I might as well give it a lash. So that was really cool. So yeah, they're in different offices now. But I got. You're
like, is there a table somewhere where I can get to work?
No, because it was clear there was no room. They were all like that. That place is where they were was so cramped, man. They showed me Joe Quesada's office, and it was a cupboard. Joe Quesada gets a cupboard. That's how little space they had in that.
Oh my god! I'm sure it's a little bigger than a cupboard now.
Where the offices they're in now are much nicer. They have more room, but again, those guys. Yeah, it's not. I would say they definitely are in nicer offices now, but they're not what they could be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like those editors work really hard in cramped conditions, and I feel bad whenever I see people kind of lash out at editors. I get really pissed off because especially the ones at Marvel I know are so sound, and they just have to eat so much crap from fans, and none of those editors are getting rich at that job.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people say when something. I think I saw Tom Brevoort say this. He's like, if something goes well and the creative team gets praise, if something goes wrong, then the editors get shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I prefer they get shit than me get shit, but still though.
Do you guys actually? I just thought about a question for both of you. Do you think it's now, as artists today who all work from home? Obviously, it's better for artists because you can live in Ireland and England, and the offices can be in LA, and it doesn't really matter. But would you like to still work at home if you had the choice? Or would you love to work in a Marvel office, surrounded by Marvel artists, or image artists, DC?
Well, there are places that have that. In Canada, there's these people that have created, all these artists that have created their own studio. There was a documentary about it, and they, all of them, some of them write, some of them draw for Marvel, DC, all over the place. Yeah. And I sometimes chat with people on Skype, and that's kind of like my own little bullpen with people that are drawing, in Marvel, DC, all that stuff. It's great. I need camaraderie, otherwise I go fucking insane.
Yeah. So you're saying, Will, that because you have the Skype sessions, that working at home is better, or would you like to be in?
No, I would love to. I would like to do half and half, like half the week in an office space and half the week at home.
Okay, what about you, Dick?
Well, I shared an office with I shared a studio space with Jordi Belair, who's the colorist on all my stuff, and that was like handy. It was handy in one way because you could just kind of talk through ideas and stuff, but the other side, there's so much distractions, and I worked in the same room as Will for a while too, and Will's lovely, but I wanted to murder him. There's ups and downs. Like, Will's somebody who really wanted to work in a studio with people, and a part of me is like, the sense of camaraderie and the not being as isolate definitely does help. But at the same time, I also like being on my own. So it's hit and miss, because also the thing is, when you're sharing a space with somebody, it is distracting and it's hard to sit down and get your work done. But also, when you're on your own all the time, you start losing your fucking mind. So I do think I remember Skype was invented when I was living in Scotland, and that was great for me because I could talk to friends from home while working, other comic book artists. I actually got to be friends with other comic book artists because, similar to what Will's saying, we all have the same job. Yeah. So, you could all complain about the same thing, or, the way people who go to an office complain about their job or their boss. We never really get to do that because we're on our own all the time. So it is cool for that. I don't know. I think either way, there's a downside whichever way you go. But I think maybe a healthy balance of both would be cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's a very long version of what I said.
Yeah, but wasn't it better? No,
it was better.
No, it was. Yours is way more succinct. I was thinking through my answer as I was saying it.
So, who or what has been some of the favorite characters or moments that you've ever drawn? Like, what, when you were drawing it, you're like, oh man, I'm loving the shit out of this. Like, drawing this character or drawing this moment it's why I draw comics.
Do you have an answer to that, Will? Or have you answered this before?
Mine was recently. I drew Thanos. Just one little story in this Thanos annual, and the panel description was Thanos versus the Avengers. Have fun. And I was like, all right, well, this is now going to be like, it was a 6-panel page, but I made it like pretty much the majority of the page. I was like, oh, the other stuff isn't that important. There's someone crossing the street and stuff. They can be little stick figures. Let's focus on this giant Avengers battle. So that was great. And I also said to them, I was like, well, if Thanos is fighting them, and this is like a flashback, can I make it from the Infinity Gauntlet? And they're like, yeah, I don't see why not. So I was like, okay, so I get to draw Captain America in his old outfit. I get to draw Hulk in his weird space brown jumpsuit. And they're like, yeah. I was like, well, this is the best.
It is funny how like some small nerdy things like that are really keep going. Like when I did Deadpool, I didn't really care about Deadpool. I wasn't a Deadpool fan, but I saw the Captain America and Wolverine were going to be in it. I'm like, yes. So like getting to draw those types of, because drawing Thunderbolts, I was drawing basically kind of like C-list characters all the time. So a lot of my Marvel career was like not drawing the big version. It was like, I was drawing Venom, but it was like Flash Thompson Venom. I wasn't drawing Spider. Well, I mean, I really liked that version of Venom, but it wasn't Spider-Man, for example, or when I was drawing Deadpool, I wasn't really drawing the X-Men, which is what I wanted. It was always like this kind of like other version. But I remember there was one issue of Thunderbolts where I got to do a double page spread and draw every single character who had been a Thunderbolt. and that was really like nerdily cool. Getting to draw, Jeff Parker once wrote Spider-Man into an issue of Thunderbolts just so I could draw Spider-Man, and it was like,
where are all these writers that, like, because Nate was talking about this, these writers that draw characters in for their artists? I need to meet some of these people.
Well, it depends. Look, it depends on the writer, Warren didn't write anything in for me to placate my nerdery. But it depends who you're working with, I'd worked with Jeff for like a year or something, and he wanted to see how I would draw Spider-Man, so wrote Spider-Man into it, and oh man, it was so satisfying to draw Spider-Man. Or the first time I draw Wolverine in a Marvel comic, that was so satisfying. But I would say that
I can completely agree with those. I got to draw Spider-Man Deadpool. I was over the moon, and I've been able to draw Wolverine only twice. Once on a cover, except the editor wanted it to be the original costume, like his first appearance on the whole cover. And like I kind of did that. Like I was like, yeah, this is the original one, but I really just made it more animated series.
Okay.
And another time. But I completely, I'm in the same boat as you. There's a lot of those characters that you're waiting for. To be fair, though, I was just going to say, when I did Great Lakes Avengers, I kept saying, like, hey, Deadpool used to be a Great Lakes Avenger. Let's get him in there. Because that was only my second project, and I did Star-Lord before that. And then Great Lakes Avengers, and I was like, I work for Marvel, but I have not drawn any, Marvel superhero yet. I've just been drawing a bunch of weirdos.
It's weird how you end up kind of not getting to do the stuff that you'd like to do as a kid, But I think that those are fleeting at the same time. Like the stuff I'm actually like to properly answer your question, Alex, is I think things like Moon Knight, where
Moon Knight's a really underrated character for sure. I love Moon Knight.
The run we did on Moon Knight, if you're a fan of the character, like there's not even that much character in it.
I think you probably made the quintessential Moon Knight run, right? Like that's the one that everyone goes to.
Someone asks, what's your favorite Moon Knight run? I'm like, mine?
Yeah.
Because I just kind of got to do just this madness every time.
Yeah, I think people think David Finch and Declan Shalvey when it comes to Moon Knight.
I think Sienkiewicz as well, clearly.
But
yeah, I think Finch was definitely what most people were thinking of, even though Alex Maleev and Bendis did a run on it before us. But Finch was the one I kept hearing. But I hear me more now, which is pretty cool.
Everyone knows. Everyone says what's their favorite Great Lakes Avengers run, of course they think of me.
Well, but that's the thing is, right? So do you want to just be drawing the characters that you liked as a kid? Yes. But do you want that to be like, no one's going to remember that in 10 years, that you got to do Spider-Man 3 times. What you want to do is try.
I will.
Fair enough. But you want to try leave your mark on a character. Like you want to be like, like the way people remember Walt Simonson or the way people remember Todd McFarlane. And, it's not easy to do. It's so hard because most stories.
That falls into your lap, right? It's not planned.
Yeah, no, it's not planned. I mean, you can try plan it, but good luck, Like I said, like Moon Knight, I feel like we got to do that on Moon Knight, but I wasn't planning on doing a Moon Knight run. I wanted to do Daredevil. I want Daredevil. Give me Daredevil. So when I got the Moon Knight gig, I'm like, okay, I can make this my Daredevil, basically. But then again, Warren wrote stories that were basically portfolio pieces for me. He didn't write Captain America into any of them or Wolverine, but he wrote stories that like really pushed me as an artist. So everybody started noticing, hey, this guy, like, because I worked at Marvel for like 3-4 years before I did Moon Knight, and there were fans of those characters that really liked what I did, but it's not like anybody was going like, whoa, this Declan Shalvey guy is really amazing until Moon Knight, So, and then I stopped doing Marvel stuff. So, but that's great. And I'd love to, I'd love to try do more stuff like that. But everybody wants to do that. Who gets the actual opportunity to do it is a whole other thing.
Yeah, no, I love your Moon Knight stuff as well. So I can see why people praise it and remember it still. I have usually a question that I like to ask all people that come on the show, because when we're interviewing voice actors, artists, writers, or you happen to be both in this case, so it would be both directed you. But for all the listeners that are listening right now that are inspiring writers, they're artists, what would you give them as advice just in order to get closer to breaking into comic books?
The problem with giving advice like this is that you hear the same bits of advice from everywhere else. but and I'm going to do the same thing. But I would say start small. I keep meeting, or I used to keep meeting. Like I don't talk to people anymore. I stopped them. I have them stopped at the gate. But you often hear like, oh well, I've got this like graphic novel planned. It's going to be 300 pages, and I'm like, I'm going to stop you right there. That's never going to happen. You know, if you've never done comics, you're not going to do it. It's generally writers who think that they can do it. You're like, your art is going to burn out on page 10 if they've never done anything before. You know, you've got to be realistic. And the best thing to do is, people who want to make films don't start out with trilogies. They do short films. You know, they do something.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
They do like specific goals, things that they can achieve, tell a story within a, like, that's why like they say future shocks are the best way to learn how to do comics is doing these kind of self-contained stories that need to make sense within 6 pages, and then do the next one and do the next one, because you'll also, if you do 6-page story and then you do a different 6-page story, I guarantee you learn more on the second story than if you were doing page 12 of one story. You know, getting to finish, like, and like put a full stop on a story really helps you look back and evaluate what worked and what didn't work. I kind of mentored an artist last year, and he started by doing a 1-page story, and then he did a 3-page story, and then he did a 8-page story, and then he did a 10-page story, and then he did a 20-page story, and you could see. I felt like he improved so much faster by just the act of finishing something. It's like your brain resets and then approaches something with a new with having learned more. Whereas I feel, like, because I've done graphic novels, and I found that when I was doing monthly comics, it raised my game more, because every single issue I was trying to, like, every 21st page I was trying to do better than the previous 20 pages. Whereas the graphic novel, I was on page 70 and I didn't really. I didn't really notice the difference between page 20 and page 15, page 70. So the act of like punctuation, I feel, really helps you be a lot more critical of your work. It flexes different muscles, and it also kind of gives you a sense of satisfaction of completing something. Whereas if you say, I'm going to do this 300-page graphic novel, you're going to work on that thing for years. And by the time it's finished, you're going to hate it because it's shit. It's going to be start with it as with you as a terrible storyteller, and if you're lucky, you're a good storyteller. By the time you're finished it, the page 1 is awful, and it just becomes this hodgepodge. It's best to kind of like, dot it, have short punctuation at first, and then build and build and build, and then once you're kind of like you're more fully formed, be more ambitious with the scope of things.
No, that's solid advice. Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
No, it's shit, mate. No, it's brilliant.
So what are you working on now currently? What can you share with the listeners and what you're working on?
I'm working on a secret project that I can't talk about, but I've stopped that for a little bit because I'm currently penciling the 2-in-1 annual. That's out in June, I think. It's a Doctor Doom and the Thing, and I'm getting to draw kind of fantastic. It's weird. Like, I started Marvel in 2010, and I've never drawn Fantastic Four characters. I handed in pages to Tom Brevoort today, and they're like, "Oh, they said, oh, your thing looks great." I'm like, it feels weird that after, I started Marvel 8 years ago, and I've never drawn the Thing.
Well, I mean, this is going to be the year of the Fantastic Four, isn't it?
It seems to be, yeah. So, like, timing wise, great, But it's really, to be honest, it's more of a kind of like a Doctor Doom one shot. But I mean, it's cool. It's getting to draw that mask and the cape and everything is pretty cool. So, I'm working on that, and then I'm gonna go back to my secret thing. It'll probably be the end of the year before that comes out.
So you're drawing the Thing, and then you've got a secret thing.
Exactly. It'll be a solo.
Is it Swamp Thing?
It's a thing book where he's wearing a mask.
I'm excited to see the Fantastic Four come back. book. I'm excited to see that Doctor Doom and the Thing. That sounds cool as well.
That sounds like a wicked project. If any editor was like, "Do you want to draw 2 issues of Thing fighting Doctor Doom?" I'd be like, "Yes, obviously."
Yeah, it's weird. Like again, the theme of this whole thing is how lucky I am. But you know, I'm in a nice place where if Marvel say
it's not lucky, mate. From what you've said over this whole podcast, you've earned everything that gets chucked your way. I mean, it's just dedication. It's passion, drive. As they always say at the end of Hell's Kitchen, I got the passion and the drive. It's bloody true. Like, it is true. Like, you have to work hard to fucking...
Oh, what about a Hell's Kitchen version of comic books? That would just be incredible.
I've been trying to come up with that for so long. Like, you have, like, Jim Lee on the panel and, like, Tom McFarlane pops in and, like, it's like, you need to draw a splash page in 2 hours, go, and people are like, "Oh God."
Who would be the hard ass? Who would be the really hard ass?
Who would be Gordon Ramsay?
Tom McFarlane, definitely.
I don't think he'd be.
I need this thing in fucking yesterday, boy. This needs to be in yesterday.
Okay, fair enough.
Or maybe Rob Liefeld or something like that.
Yeah,
or Bob Kane's ghost is just in the background, like, "Make me money!" Wow, wow.
He's the Penguin. Oh man. Oh Jesus. Yeah, that would be a really good show. And then I would
watch that.
Yeah.
Did you see that they did? This is slightly different, but there was a show called Strip Search a couple of years ago, and it was I think it was run by Penny Arcade or something, and it was a reality show for cartoonists. Erica Moen from Periscope Studio was in it, but like, it was really good. Like, I mean, it was a reality show, but I mean, I think it was all online, so I'm sure it's still there somewhere. But it was a reality show, and it was about cartoonists having to, like, do different challenges. And, you know, I remember one of them was, like, you know, arranging your table for conventions. I remember watching it, going, like, I've been a professional for, like, years, and I haven't a fucking clue what I'm doing. Like, they all did a much better job, arranging their tables than I ever have. I show up at a table and I scribble my name in a Sharpie, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I check it out. Actually, I genuinely thought it was a really good show.
I will check that out.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Not as good as Bob Kane's Ghosts and...
No, I mean, that's just a quality idea, straight up.
Hell's Bullpen or something, I don't know.
Yeah, and every time there's an amazing page, Stan Lee just pops in and says Excelsior. Is there any news on Stan Lee? Because last time, Will, you told me he was not well.
I don't know. I think all of his children are running out of his house with all his belongings right now.
I know.
I mean, I don't really know, but there does seem to be some shady stuff going on regards his welfare. It's kind of worrying.
Yeah, no, it's sad. Yeah, so hopefully,
it is. Yeah,
he's on the mend. Hopefully, at some point, because I'm not ready for Stanley to go. I'm not.
Well, I mean, whatever happens in that regard, of course, we all want Stan to be okay. But I certainly hope that his affairs are all okay. It sucks seeing anybody taken advantage of in their older age, you know.
Yeah, exactly. With no one else to kind of stand by their side and tell them fuck off and leave us alone.
Why are you ending this podcast on such a depressing note?
Yeah, thanks.
Who said I was ending it? We're going another 3 hours, man. We're going all night. So
I'm gonna go to bed, mate. I'm old.
So, Dec, where can our listeners find you on social media?
They can find me as Declan Shalvey, my whole name, no spaces or nothing, on Instagram and Twitter, and I think DShalv on Tumblr.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I enjoy following you on Twitter, especially when you and Nate have some bants going back and forth.
Yeah, it's hard to know. Like, you want to be like, you know, I got into a little bit of Twitter trouble there a few months ago when I raised I would have said a non-offensive opinion, but I noticed there's a balance between not being opinionated online, being friendly, showing your work, and having a bit of a laugh. Like, when I started on Twitter years ago, it was just showing your work and having a laugh, and it is so not that now. And you have to try. It's very hard to try and enjoy the platforms that keep you company. Because one of the reasons I was on Twitter in the first place was that it was like having someone keep you company while you're working, you know. And yeah, things have changed.
Yeah, I suppose the more successful you get and the more popular you get, the more the arseholes come out and try and tell you how much that they don't like your stuff or just want to argue for the sake of arguing. Yeah,
it's more that I don't really care if someone doesn't like my stuff. I'm not really that bothered, but it's It's all the political commentary and
it's all that shite. Yeah,
I've had enough of that recently.
Did you get some recently?
Remember what? Because you commented on it when I posted like people need like talking about negativity about breaking in, and I said you just got to draw some people use. I got a retweet from that from CB, and then all of CB's like haters like came at me.
Can I just say for everybody out there, it's CB Sobolski, and who are they? Who's CB? Will? So anyone
He's
that
the
doesn't
editor-in-chief, you tit. He's our big boss in charge.
Yeah, he's the boss man.
Yeah, he's the one with the big cigar. He's J.J. James.
Once again, I know, but for all listeners out there who don't know, it's nice to clarify that. Okay?
Right. Sorry, you're right. My bad. I didn't.
Alex just wants to show how his brother got a tweet from the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics.
If it sounded like that, then I'm just going to edit it out because that wasn't the point at all.
CB retweeted it, and then all of these people were like, "Oh yeah, all you need to do is just chuck on a wig, and you can break into Marvel and stay." And like all the stuff about transgender people. I was like, "What the fuck is this all coming from?" And I debated with them for ages, and everyone just told me, "Just don't bother." But
the debater in me, like there was because there was an awful lot of shit said about an editor that I'm extremely fond of because they've been such a support and champion of my stuff, and they're like they're shitting on her. I'm like, well, you don't know what you're talking about because you don't know the person, and I do.
Yeah.
So
you're talking about Heather.
You can have your opinion, but the thing is, I know you're wrong because I know the person. You don't know. If I can't talk about your friend because I don't know them. I can have an opinion, but if you tell me like that you know them, then clearly you know them better than me. What pisses me off about all that stuff is, and like, don't be wrong, like, because I think there's a whole load of like left wing stuff that pisses me off. That's really like just dickheads, on one side, but the dickheads on the side we're talking about there, they don't realize they're just as bad as the people they complain about. They complain about how they get triggered over everything. It's like, well, so do you, buddy. Like you said, your tweet about just working hard or whatever, or it's like they get triggered by that. You're like, Jesus Christ! If you're going to talk about how sensitive one crowd are, you can't be doing the same thing yourself. You lose any like credibility. I can't take you seriously at all.
Extremism on any level is bad, whether it's with your views or not.
Yeah, it's just the fact they can't see like just how they're guilty of the same thinking that they're supposedly quote unquote protesting or standing up against. You're like, it's very hard to have like an actual, because I like having like conversations. I like talking things through and figure things out, but just Twitter is not the lens to do that with,
No, absolutely not. And I mean, to go back and as Willie said, you were mentioning Heather, and I don't know Heather at all. You do, but she on Twitter, for anyone that is an aspiring artist, a writer, podcaster, anything, every single Sunday for 4 hours, because she's got so many followers on Twitter, she will say it's whatever, I forget what she calls, she has a name like Share Sunday or something along those lines. But you literally
Signal Boost, I think.
Signal Boost, Signal Boost Sunday. You literally just write in the comments, and I've done this a few times, just Spider-Man the Animated Series podcast. Here's a link with a very brief description about what the podcast is, to attract people's attention. And she retweets it, and I've gained loads of followers. And Will and I have gained loads of listeners through what she's done.
I was at a New York Comic Con one year, and this girl came up to me, and she had like made this comic, and she said she wanted to do comics. I'm like, what do you want to do? Do you want to be an artist? Do you want to be a writer? She said, no, I want to be an editor. And it was Heather. And she put together this whole crime book. Like she had, she'd arranged, she'd set up the publishing. She had, she'd put the entire thing together. People don't understand. It's one thing to draw a book and to write a book and to edit a book, but to actually get a book made is a whole other process that most of us who make comics want nothing to do with, because it's a pain in the hole.
I know. Will and I are we're doing something on the side as well.
Self-publishing is a pain in the arse.
It's a fucking endless nightmare, and also money where you're just like, is this cost? Is this cost? Is this cost? And then if we even get this far, then it's this, and we're just like, holy shit.
Yeah, so like generally when comics, like people say, oh, what do I need to do? And like another thing that type of advice is just to fucking do it. Like, if you can prove you can do it, that's half the battle. Yeah. And Heather had done it. She'd done it before she was ever at Marvel. Like, so as far as I was concerned, I'm like, well, she put her money where her mouth is, and she actually fucking did it. All these people giving her shit have never tried or done anything. Like, they want to, then they'll talk about it. But like we were saying before, the amount of people we know who talk about shit and don't actually do it. And that's not to say everybody who tries will succeed. Of course not. Of course it's difficult. But the people who will go on about how, what's the point? They're the people who are not trying and won't try. And also, like, all that shit that would bug me, because Heather did Gwenpool. What were her other books? Star Wars. Yeah. Darth Vader, Deadpool, and like Deadpool versus Old Man Logan I wrote, and like she helped me make that book as violent as fucking possible. You know what I mean? There's no fucking SJW crap, where I have to put in. No, there was no doctrine thing where I need to, I can't say something or whatever. Like, Heather's got great taste, wants to make great books. She's happened to have one book with a woman in it. Oh wow, what a crime,
I know, it's ridiculous, but yeah, no, that's awesome, and that's sharing all the positivity there, and I think that's a definite good. Yeah,
like you said, what she's doing, like, she doesn't need to do that, like sharing people's work. I see her sharing cosplayers and people doing websites and making their own graphic novels. Like, no one's getting a medal by doing a signal boost for other people.
Yeah, no, she's always been so nice to me through emails and just positive on. She's a real. And just like a positive attitude in emails, like, if you're having trouble with a deadline, it's like, you can do it, and like it's all like real, just positivity.
Yeah, I remember you telling me one time, Will, when we were talking on the phone, that Heather said that, and you're like, I can do it, Heather. I'm gonna. Yeah,
I will do it. I will get it done.
I know Heather's sound out like she wants to make good work, and like that's what I'll work with her any day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, honestly, and in your own right, man, all of the information you shared, especially for me, a big chunk of interviewing these people is one, because we're both comic book fans and you're a fan of the show, so I love to talk about all that geeky shit, but I also really love a person's story and also how they can give information to people that are out there, because one thing that I've always taken away from any podcast from creators that I really admire is not just their story, but then the advice that they give, whether they're giving it directly or it's just through conversation. And you've given some good stuff today, so I appreciate that.
Oh, thanks, man. I'm glad I wasn't just total bollocks.
No, I know there was some of that in between, but we'll forgive you because you're not a big James Bond fan, yet you got to write. Well, you wrote for M, so that was the only reason why I was like, all right. Because if you said I don't like James Bond, but I got to write him, I think I would have stopped recording and be like, look, mate, this is not on, all right?
Maybe I'll write Bond someday just to spite you.
You will.
That would be my reason.
But then you would have been one of the guys that we were just talking about that was like, well, if I got to write it, this is what it would have been, but you wouldn't have gone the effort to go and do it,
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Yeah. If I want to write Bond, then I've got to fucking make it happen before someone else does it worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, it can be worse. It can always be worse. So, go for it.
Well, I'm going to go read your M book anyway. I really am. Will, you're going to have to purchase that on Comic Shop.
You have to buy it on Comic Shop.
Yeah, per our deal. Otherwise, your Netflix privileges will be revoked.
No, I think you've been taking quite a lot recently. I'm so behind on reading. I haven't read a comic in like.
That's not my fault. That's not my fault. Just because you start reading doesn't mean that.
Yeah, that wasn't the deal, Will.
Yeah, come on.
All right, it's a fucking team up here. Do you want my bloody Amazon login as well, Declan?
Go for it. I know I don't have time.
All right, Declan. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for coming on, man.
Oh, my pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you come back at some point to do an episode review if you'd like, because obviously we're only in season 1. So if you'd like, if you remember or want to tell me a particular favorite episode where you're like, I love this.
Find a specific episode where Aunt May gives the best advice.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I'll have to. I think I absolutely have to now.
I think you gave Aunt May advice during this episode, so I can see why you remember Aunt May's advice. It was solid.
You should just, in the editing, you should just add the da-na-na-na-na music over every time Declan speaks.
Yeah. And somehow put a voice effect so he sounds like Aunt May. He's like, if you want to be a writer, what do you have to do, Peter?
All right. I mean, I'm in.
All right, wicked. Okay, well, if you remember...
we're just going to call this Declan Shalvey, the Aunt May of comics.
Title sorted.
Hey, a badge of honor I will wear with pride.
All right, well, yeah, we'll definitely be in touch. Love to have you come back for an episode review, especially if it's an episode you were particularly fond of.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. Will, do you have anything you'd like to share with the listeners coming up? Any work or anything like that?
I think WrestleMania is this weekend, right?
It is. My wife is actually going with her wrestling friends and won't be coming back until 8 in the fucking morning because she's watching it live.
I got a Hardy Boys cover came out from me to do with WrestleMania. I don't know. I'm not up to speed on it, but I know there's something out right now with the Hardy Boys on it. And next month I got my Thanos book coming out. And I'm still trucking along with Spawn, so that's all that's going on with me.
Okay, cool.
Sweet. Oh, can I just say I have a graphic novel that I wrote called Savage Town. Is available to buy through it's in stores and online. And Injection Volume 3 is out with written by Ward Ellis and drawn by yours truly. So yeah, if anyone hasn't seen those, check them out.
Definitely, absolutely. I hope they all do. I mean, you've already got someone purchasing one of your books, vicariously through his brother.
Me.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll close out the segment now. So thank you for coming on because we'll have a tail end where Will and I will discuss the interview and play our silly games. Or maybe we'll bring you back to play some silly games as well on the other episode. But yeah, thank you for coming on, Deck. It's been an absolute
my pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, and we'll speak soon.
Mate.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
So, right off the bat, I have to say that one thing that I really, really enjoyed talking about him is just the animated series. I mean, we've had a lot of guests on the show already, all connected to the animated series, whether they were part of it or they watched it. But his particular memory of Aunt May giving Peter sound advice is it is so random, as you said.
I love it. I love hearing, you expect to hear people being like, oh, the Venom Saga or the Secret Wars and stuff like that. And then you hear an answer like, oh, I just love Aunt May always has the right thing to say. And I was like, that's really deep.
And maybe that's why he's a pretty good writer now as well.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm like, what are you thinking about? That's crazy to me.
I know, but that popped into his head first, so it definitely had an impact. And also, I liked his response on why people love Spider-Man, which is, it gets down to the core of the character of the everyman's man, but also, if he has more power and more money or more privilege, it goes against the character and it doesn't work for him, and that's why.
I wonder if that's a dig at what's going on with Spider-Man right now in a subtle way.
Possibly, and maybe that's and he said that's why the symbiote. He abandoned the symbiote because it gave him too much power and too much. Luxury in his life. It solved a lot of his problems, and it didn't work for that character. So. Yeah, I thought that was a very good answer. Other than that, the man has an endless list of comics that he's drawn. Obviously, writing is something that he does as well, and there's certainly more and more books. Deadpool versus Old Man Logan and the James Bond M particularly sound awesome to me, especially the James Bond one. But yeah, his comic book career is just staggering how many characters he's actually drawn and worked on.
Yeah, it's something to aspire for.
Absolutely. Yes. All right, Dick.
Sorry, I'm being a dick about that.
Yeah, you are. So to move on to also just the advice he was giving, and even if it was direct advice or indirect advice, and adjusted his storytelling, like going to all the Comic-Cons. I mean, that is dedication.
I mean, I'm all about. It's nice to, that was funny with Nate because Nate was like, I just drew and then, the work came to me. So that was great. And that was shocking to me, but it's always nice to hear someone like Declan being like, no, he didn't even say it I worked my fucking ass off. He was very nonchalant about it, he said in his Irish way. But no, he worked his fucking ass off. And that's you reap what you sow with that.
Yeah, and I think that maybe Nate was being modest as well because he said, I drew a lot and then I started getting attention. But I know from seeing you in that that phase of I drew a lot, if you want to just call it that. There's a shitload of work and dedication and time that goes into that, and study and research, which you've talked about on one of the episodes for your wall crawl to Marvel. But yeah, it is amazing that he just thought, at a very young age as well, and having a single parent, I think that meant a lot to him to try and be successful and do something he really wanted to do. And also, as his mum said, fuck yeah, that's a lot of money. You know, it's just, I think I
don't know what this money he's talking about is, because I have not made a lot of money yet.
I think he set his sights on what he wanted to do, and nothing got in his way. And that's very impressive. So yeah, it was a pleasure to talk to him. It was great fun. I'd love to have him and maybe Nate as well come on for an episode review and see the banter between them, because it sounds like they had a good night when they went out on the piss and then went back to watch Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it was a great time. So we hope you all enjoyed that interview and took something away from it, whether it was just a few laughs or some information to go on if you're aspiring to be somebody.
There we go.
But in the meantime, shall we move on to our usual category games?
Let's do it.
Sacrifices must be made.
You're right on time for your funeral.
We call ourselves Venom.
Okay, so to kick off, let's do villains versus villains first. All right, let's see. We've got numbers here. I'm going to give you... So once again, because the numbers are all scattered, I'm going to give you... I'm going to count and give you a set of numbers, and you can choose two different sets. So choose one person from one set and then another singular person from another set, okay?
Okey-doke.
Choose 1 through 5.
4.
We've got the Green Goblin Harry Osborn version.
Okey-doke.
Okay, so I would say not as smart as his father, but still equipped and still just as powerful. Versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 through 5.
4.
The Scorpion. So we have Harry Osborn, Green Goblin versus
Harry Osborn.
Harry Osborn.
Hello, I'm Harry Osborn.
Versus the Scorpion. So as I said, Harry's nowhere near as intelligent and scheming as his father, but he does have his father's voice in his head, kind of encouraging him what to do, but that doesn't mean that he's as smart. He does have the goblin gas in him. He is actually, I feel like he's, especially in the animated series, he's more unhinged than his father because of the MJ Peter wedding and all of this crap that goes on. And yeah, he's got a full arsenal of gliders and gadgets and weaponry. Now, Scorpion, on the other hand, he's got super strength. He's enhanced by the what the fuck is it called? How have I not? What's the name of the way they get out of saying nuclear in the show? Why can't I think of this right now?
I don't know. I didn't know they couldn't say nuclear.
Sorry, yeah, they can't say radioactive or nuclear.
Yeah. I knew they couldn't say radioactive. I didn't know they couldn't say nuclear.
Neogenic recombinator. So,
there you go.
Using the neogenic recombinator, Scorpion is turned into who he is. So he's got super strength. He's got Scorpion-like ability, so he can obviously jump really high and has enhanced reflexes.
Reflexes.
He's quite animalistic in the sense of his eyes and his teeth, and of course he's got that impenetrable tail and hide, actually his hide's not impenetrable, meaning his suit, but his tail can't be broken, and it squirts that acid.
Mm-hmm.
So he's quite a contender as well, actually, now I think about it. This is quite difficult, because I'm just thinking, Harry would float above him, he's got super strength, so he would fire down an arsenal and blow Scorpion to high hell. However, Harry's not that as smart as his father, and I think the Scorpion would also be able to hit him with the acid if he was high up.
I think anybody who has someone as calculating as Norman Osborn on your shoulder, I think has a major upper hand in a battle.
So you think because he's got his dad's voice, kind of his personal tactician or something?
Yeah,
that's true. And Scorpion is pretty dumb.
In the show, does Norman Osborn help make the Scorpion?
No, it's another scientist along with JJ, and we'll be reviewing that episode for the next episode, actually. We'll be reviewing the Sting of the Scorpion, so we'll leave it to that. But yeah, I think as powerful as Scorpion is, and as equipped as he is with the tail and the acid, and he's got claws, I think that you're right. With Norman Osborn whispering in Harry's ear, and Harry is just as strong as Scorpion, and he's got even more weaponry, I do think that the Goblin would end up outsmarting the Scorpion and take him down.
Yeah, without the help of Norman Osborn, I think it would be a different case.
I agree. All right, yeah, we're on the same side. So ringing the bell, it is Harry Osborn. Moving on to the Amazing Friends fight. Same premise, just with Spider-Man's allies instead of his villains.
The name's Daredevil.
I punish those who prey on the innocent.
Meet the new champion of the Allied Forces, Captain America.
What I smell is trouble.
It's clobbering time!
You've got numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pick one of them.
4.
We've got Beast from the X-Men.
Oh, I love Beast.
Beast is
Oh,
awesome.
I love Beast.
Oh, I love Beast. And let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
4.
We've got Nick Fury.
Interesting battle.
Of course, Nick Fury does have S.H.I.E.L.D.
But is that a weapon? Like having all of S.H.I.E.L.D., can you count that as a weapon?
Well, we did for Agent X, sort of, when we were talking with Nate about it.
I guess so.
But Beast is highly intelligent. His reflexes, his strength, they're enhanced. His feet are... What's the word I'm looking for?
Big.
Well, yeah, but they're highly... Is it dexterous?
Say about a beast with big feet.
I don't know why I'm exploring, trying to use words that I only vaguely know on a
No,
on a
dexterous.
podcast.
Dexterous is like, I suppose, flexibility. So yeah, I mean, yeah, he has. If it was like a video game sheet, he would have high dexterity, I would say. But he's got high agility as well.
Yeah, he does. Okay, and versus Nick Fury, who is just a human being, but he's got shield, and he's got like a mini mini helicarrier, like a single-man ship that flies, and is well equipped on the show. I don't know.
Well, Beast is also a scientist.
Yeah, he is.
I feel like. Hang on, I got feedback. By the way, I can hear myself.
It's probably really. It's just through my headphones, bud.
Oh, it's gone now. That's so weird. When you say it, it goes. Is someone listening? It's creepy.
Hello, Smythe. Are you there?
Yeah. The moment I said I got a bit of feedback, it went away. If you're if the government is listening, I will pay my taxes on time this year. Don't worry. So anyway, Beast, yeah, he's a scientist. So I feel like Nick Fury might try to reason with him in a way, and he's like, you know what, this battle is silly, we shouldn't fight. And he's like, agreed, and they have a cup of tea and a biscuit.
One of Beast's favourite. He's like, I love a biscuit.
And then when Beast is all calm and everything, then Nick Fury will do some sort of mutant trap and get him done. I feel like Nick Fury has, like Batman, a bunch of ways to stop these heroes because he is human.
True, and he's always got an escape plan, and he's always got a backup plan.
Or Beast beats the crap out of him, and it's not the real Nick Fury. It's one of his. You know how he always has robotic furies and stuff.
That's true. Yeah, his stand-ins.
So, I'm going to go with Nick Fury.
See, but I was also thinking about Beast being able to sneak through the helicarrier because he is very nimble, and he can. I've seen him on the show and in comics being able to.
I don't think anybody could just sneak through the helicarrier, though.
And with his super strength and his intelligence, he could disarm the helicarrier from inside. I mean, he's not just brawn but brains as well.
But then, you just get rid of the helicarrier, but you haven't got rid of the army that's on the helicarrier.
Yeah, maybe he comes up with a way to disarm the weapons. All right, I do like your Nick Fury in having an answer for any single possible hero that can go rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he can put a load of supervillains in jail, then he can definitely do the same thing for the superheroes as well.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, yeah, you convinced me again. Nick Fury ringing the bell goes on to the next round.
How many do we have left in this?
Before we actually move on to the next round two? Quite a few, man. I mean, there were more villains than there were heroes. I can see there's about 8 to 10 more villains to go.
Okay.
And
so that's 4 rounds.
Yeah, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 more heroes to go.
So 3 rounds to go for them.
Yes, pretty much. Unless I just counted wrong, because I may have counted someone that's just been knocked out because I haven't marked them off. But regardless of that, not too many to go, and then we'll go into it again. We pick you'll pick some numbers at random, and there'll be people that have won the previous round, and so on and so forth. And eventually, we're going to reach the ultimate battle of villain versus villain and hero versus hero. Who's going to be crowned the champion of each category, and then ultimately get to discuss that hero versus that villain and who is going to win. So
yeah, sounds dope.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, and it will continue. I don't know what episode will eventually reach that and how it will work, but definitely looking forward to that day for sure.
Yeesh. So
if you enjoy this podcast, please be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube, as it helps us wall crawl up the charts and attract both new listeners and guests. Also, be sure to visit us on our Facebook and Twitter pages by keyword searching STAS Podcast, where you can see images or clips from recent episode discussions, chat about the show, as well as leaving any comments or suggestions about the podcast. Or if you're not into social media at all, you can always email us at staspodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to follow Will on his social media pages to see his artwork, stay up to date with what he's working on, and get a glimpse into the workday of a comic book artist, you can find him at
anywhere at Robson Inc. INK.
That's right. So be sure to check us all out.
That's right.
That's right, buddy. Okay, shall we move on to the Daily Bugle fact of the day?
Yep.
Now let's see who's under that mask.
I'm shocked, and you're gonna be too.
I guess it really does pay to practice shoddy journalism. Keep it up, JJ.
I have waited for this for some time.
I've been waiting for this for some time.
We haven't done our Smythe Keep in a while, actually, especially because we took a week off.
No, Smythe.
No, we have not, Smythe. Okay, let's take a look at...
I've been waiting to podcast for some time.
Okay, we've got...
So sad that he's dead, because I would fucking love to interview him.
Wouldn't that be amazing? I know, Roscoe Lee Brown would have been so much fun to interview. And Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.
Yeah.
Just as much.
Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.
All right, you've got numbers. I'm going to give you 5 of them, but you've got numbers 12, 13, 14... 13, okay. In the show, Mary Jane Watson's character design is based on the original artwork of John Romita Sr. in the comics. Todd McFarlane had redesigned the character because he thought she should look more contemporary. So her design in the comics is revered back to Romita, but has sprinkles of Todd McFarlane's redesign as well along the way.
Really? I don't see too much of McFarlane's design in there, because McFarlane had the big hair, didn't he?
He did have the big hair. Maybe it's, I don't know, facial expressions that she gives.
McFarlane was the one that was like, she's a model, so she needs to look like a model. Like, he thought that, like, everyone in Spider-Man still looked like they were in the 1960s. So he wanted to, quote, unquote, hip it up.
I love whenever we have a McFarlane fact, because you're just like, and I'm not making fun of you. I'm saying you always have the right information because you know him so well as far as studying his artwork and his career. But yeah, very interesting as added facts. I feel like we should have a backup of Will's fact of the day when it comes to Todd McFarlane.
McFarlane facts.
Yeah, McFarlane fact of the day.
Todd tips.
Todd titties. Whatever you want.
Not Todd titties.
Come on, you want to squeeze them?
A little bit.
Okay, so I know it's been a long episode today, listeners, so thank you for tuning in, because that Declan interview was a pure joy and certainly a lot of fun for us to chat with him, especially when we were just chatting about our favourite artists and writers. Like, I loved doing that with him. That was so much fun.
It's like going to any Comic-Con when you just, after the show, you're sitting with a bunch of other artists and you're like, who do you like? I like this person.
Yeah. You've got to go to the Marvel meetup party in New York, man.
I know, I don't have any money to go to New York this year, but next year, hopefully, I'll have some money to take a trip out there and hopefully have a booth and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, and then hang out with all of them afterwards. And as he said, it's great because they only know you as an email address and a picture of your face, possibly. So it'd be great.
No picture in my bio.
No, not on Comic Book DB, that's for sure. Although I looked at it today, your one, it is staggering how much they know.
Yeah, it's creepy. It's like the government. Maybe they're the ones listening to the podcast.
Yeah, maybe they're listening to this conversation.
They're like, Will is working on page 10 of issue 2 of Spawn, so we need to...
So we can tax him now for 2% of what he owes.
When's the tax year end? That's pretty soon, right?
The tax year ends this month.
Yeah, do you know what day?
No idea, bud.
I hope it's not after the 16th.
Well, you can do this thing called Google, which will tell you immediately.
Let's have a look, shall we? I don't know if you put this in the podcast. When does UK tax? 5th of April. Today! Dun, dun, dun!
Are you fucked?
No, I'm good, because I've got a big paycheck coming on the 16th, and I didn't want to come out of this year's taxes, so I'm good.
Very good for all people out there that need tax advice and comic books.
Oh, do not talk to fucking me. Good God. You want tax advice, hire a professional.
I think that's much better advice, for sure. All right. Well, Will, you good, mate?
Yeah, I'm just going to just file my taxes.
So next week when we come back, we will review the Sting of the Scorpion episode, which will be good. Martin Landau as the Scorpion. I'm looking forward because I can't hear Martin Landau at all in his voice, just like you can't hear Zimbalist Jr. in Octopus.
Who's Martin Landau again?
Sal Bandini. Want to wrestle?
Oh, okay, yeah. That's crazy.
I think only you and me and maybe a few other people will know what we're talking about when we say that. Everyone else is going to be like, yeah, he was Dracula, like loads of other things. He was in Ed Wood, Tim Burton's Ed Wood.
Sure. Oh, yeah, he was. Is he the old man and he gives him hands in the beginning?
No, what? That's Edward Scissorhands, not Ed Wood.
Oh, right. Oh, and Ed Wood, he plays Boris Karloff, doesn't he?
Yes.
Or Vincent Price, which one?
Maybe Vincent Price, but Vincent Price is who you're thinking of in Edward Scissorhands.
Oh yeah! Wow, this is like a crazy roundabout.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it all.
But no, yeah, I remember in Ed Wood, like he hires an old, I think it's Boris Karloff, to be in his movies, and he's like excited about it, and like Boris Karloff's like in a ditch fighting a giant octopus or something like that. I don't know. I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
Played by Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.
Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. Do you want to wrestle?
Well, that's Sal Bandini. That's Martin Landau.
Sal Bandini.
Oh my God! You break my brain sometimes.
Who's Zimbalist Jr. then?
Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. Jesus, I think you have the memory of a goldfish. He is
Zac Efron Zimbalist Jr.
No, Ephraim.
Yeah, Zac Efron.
Zimbalist Jr. is Alfred and Dr. Octopus.
Oh, right.
Fuck's sakes. Jesus Christ.
Ephraim Jr. I played Alfred. And a couple of characters on Spider-Man.
Mainly just one.
No, he was Alfred in that show as well.
Yeah, true, he was. He was the doorman for 5 seconds.
Hello, sir.
All right, so that is all the time we've got for this week. Join us next time where we'll be talking all things Spider-Man the Animated Series. Until then, I've been Alex Robson.
I've been Will Robson.
And remember, with a great podcast comes great recordability.
Yep.
Bye.